Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the lab. Today, with me, as you guys can see, I have Alex Trotter, and today we're going to be diving into a topic that honestly is relatively simple, on the surface at least, but it has incredibly powerful, I guess, indications and benefits, and that's isometrics. And when you think isometrics, I'm sure some of you might think, you're laying on the table and you're just squeezing your quad, but that's not what this is about. They are actually a very big key component of performance development, pain management, tendon health. I mean, muscle growth, you name it. And today we're going to kind of break that down for you guys. Who better to bring this in than the guy
Not.
who who better to bring it on here with me was Trotter.
hmm Yeah. Yeah. Excited to talk about this. So this is one of the topics that I'm diving into more and more, especially with this this current group that we have at our gym, No Name Athletics. Um, so it seems to be helping the current athletes that I'm kind of like guinea pigging with, and then before we lay it out to like the whole group. But there seemed to be a big discrepancy, if you will, on the ability to learn how to grind through like a sticking point, and then the ability to have the strength in order to hold like certain positions as well. And this is more so for like some of our track athletes or some of like our real explosive like football players and stuff like that, like holding that starting position, like if you're in a 3 point, 4 point stance, or even like a 2 point stance, and just being able to come out of that position explosively with like full force. Um, so that's what we're kind of playing with now, and changing those isometrics as far as like the joint angle and everything too. So I'm sure we'll dive into that as we go here.
Oh yeah, for sure, sure. But for those of you who maybe don't know or don't have as much background in this type of contraction type, so an isometric, what is it? So when you're looking at an isometric type of contraction, you have basically three different parts to a contraction as a whole, right? So you have the concentric phase, which is basically where there's a shortening of the muscular fibers. There's an eccentric phase where there's a lengthening of the fibers under tension, so a controlled lengthening. And then you can think of it as being an isometric where there's no movement, but there's still a buildup of tension through the system. So there's no
Mhm.
change in joint position.
Yep.
And then
Yep.
what were we going to say?
Nope. Go ahead. You nailed it.
Oh, I was going to say that the other types of when people think isometric, they think of I guess one position only in order to apply this type of contraction. And like you were already saying, you guys have already been playing around with different types of joint angles, sticking points, and
Yep.
there's different types of isometrics, I guess you could say. So let's maybe dive into a few of the different ones. I know in terms of topic wise today, I wanted to talk
Mhm.
about yielding isometrics as well as
Yep.
overcoming isometrics. So let's dive into yielding first, Strider.
Okay. So yielding is going to be more of, uh, let's say that you can just do this like as you're listening to this. So you can just squat down and try to hold your position in like a 90-degree angle. So your butt, your thigh, and your knee, and then down is going to be your shin angle. So you can just hold that position, and that's essentially like a yielding um, isometric. So it's you like fighting against gravity. There's nothing external that you're trying to push against that's immovable. I hope that kind of explained that. That's the best way that
Mhm.
I know how to explain that. Um, so you're if you think of yielding, think about it like it's you versus gravity. And then you can add external things as far as like a dumbbell in your hand or a barbell on your back or something like that.
Mhm.
Um, but you're trying to drop down and hold that position yourself rather than pushing into something else, which would becoming that would be like overcoming isometric. So that kind of rolls right into the next topic there too.
Let's go into the next one then. So like looking into more of like an overcoming isometric. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
with that, you can almost think about yourself between a rock and a hard place, in which
Yep.
you're basically trying to move the immovable object, something that is not going to give in any capacity, otherwise it wouldn't be an isometric. Uh,
Yep.
let's like what are you guys using as maybe overcoming isometrics, and what are some of the benefits overall of isometrics?
So I really like it in terms of learning how to uh, learning how to think while straining. So I want to take away the external resistance, if you will, or like the immovable object. So then when they go into like their, let's call it like a free squat or a bench, we'll just do a bench, just make it easy. So
Mhm.
if you get stuck like halfway up, then you can isometrically push against something that's during that sticking point. Um, and then eventually, when you take away that external resistance, then hopefully, in theory, you should be able to just be able to drive right through it because you're familiar with that position now, and you're familiar with getting stronger in that position. So another one would be good for like having the strength to hold yourself up in blocks for track. So you want to be able to hold that position when you rotate up and through, and you get your hips up nice up in the air. You have a 90-degree angle in that front shin, and then you're around like a 120, 130, maybe 135. That'd be a branding question on that one. Um, uh, on that back leg. So you want to be able to isometrically hold that position, um, getting ready to explode out of those blocks when the gun goes off.
No, I like that a lot. So those are really actually really good examples. So kind of going a little bit into the science of it all from what you've already basically stated,
Yeah.
we're looking at improved motor recruitment. We're looking at increased basically tendon stiffness, maybe even the ability to tolerate, tension through the system and into the bone insertion as well. So we're looking at bone and tendon health in there. And then
Yep.
last but not least, we already talked about motor recruitment, but then not just at the tendon site, for in terms of benefit, but then also being able to recruit those fast twitch fibers, without
Mhm.
as much maybe joint wear and tear. Um,
Yep.
and then kind of going into the applications aspect of things that we've already kind of talked about, we're looking at overcoming sticking points in a lift. We're looking at being able to develop force through a particular position, especially
Mhm.
when you have an athlete who has to be explosive, like in track.
Mhm.
And third, when you're looking at people who have to be able to develop high rates of force with minimal joint strain, if you wanted to lead your program off with this is a wonderful way to start priming the system, teaching the kid how to load the positions, and then also teaching them like if they have that position of weakness, like let's say like getting to the very bottom of a squat, you can teach them how to basically better position and stabilize in that with this type of contraction type.
Yep. Yep. Yeah, absolutely. So, a big one for us, or that we've noticed, is a lot of kids don't understand uh, fully. They can't just comprehend it because, like, they've never been around it, or they just aren't. You don't know what you don't know. So you can't say that you had a certain experience and you can relate to it unless you've been through it. So like until they understand that like they need 100% of their like motor unit um, to be recruited, then like that's kind of where the isometrics play into role. So they can go balls to the walls and it won't go anywhere. And they won't realize that until like they take away that external force that we were talking about or external resistance.
Mhm.
So that's a really good one too. I feel as if like it's a little bit quote unquote safer, if you will, because you can go at 100% without necessarily like a freak injury happening. Now it can happen. Don't get me wrong, it can happen,
True.
but that's where we want to develop that. So like all of the connective tissue that you mentioned as well, like with the tendons and the ligaments, especially with kids that are going through like growth spurts and everything like that. All of those things are stretching and they're in pain and all this. So like we've added a few isometric movements in there. It sucks during the movement, but then 9 times out of 10, the next few days they're like, hey, my knees don't hurt anymore, or my hips been bothering me and now it's not. So I don't know if it's like I wouldn't say masking the issue, but allowing them to continue to work at a high capacity without just beating them into the ground over and over and over. So the big thing that we want is like the carryover into the actual sport. Um, I think a lot of strength and conditioning coaches or performance coaches, what have you, they get a bad rap because they think that we're just beating these kids into the ground. You know, when the coaches want them to practice 8 days a week and for 25 hours a day. So it's like, dude, there's a time and place for this. Like, allow us to build this athlete so then now they're not sitting out and you have them available, ready to play, rather than dealing with an injury all the time.
And no, that is very well said, Trotter. That's actually very well said. I'm actually happy that you did bring up the aspect of like growth spurts and pain, especially when they're having like joint pain, tendon pain.
Absolutely.
Isometrics can be, I mean, we use them all the time in the rehab setting. I mean, they're
Yep.
fantastic for pain modulation, especially in tendinopathies. I mean,
Mhm.
you're basically strengthening the area where it connects into the bone. You're basically physiologically helping it with making it a little bit more robust and resilient to those types of stresses. So when you have a kid who is going through, they start walking, running like a baby deer, like
Yep.
it's good to start kind of taking an inventory because I mean your body is an amalgamation of different responses and inputs, and you're teaching it how to regulate. And if you can't
Mhm.
do that with this young kid, how are you going to work with a seasoned athlete who, in theory, has had years underneath their belt? And that's why I think
Yep.
isometrics, we should be using them with everybody, but in all honesty, like the younger ones, if you can teach them how to like kind of manipulate and change joint position, but then also how to exert force in particular joint positions, you're already setting them up for success down the line as soon as you start incorporating like the fact that most kids don't get enough exercise and now we're going to go putting them through these extreme regimens of exercise and then they develop joint pain. They're like, well, it's the exercises. It's like,
Yeah.
no, it's how we program them. So
Yeah. It's how
how
it's
would
being
we go
applied.
then? Say it again.
It's how it's being applied.
Exactly. So then let's go more into how we necessarily could help people, or what's some tips for programming. Like, how would we want people to start implementing these?
So I would do like a acclimation phase. So at least like that first week,
Mhm.
you don't want to go just like 100% just balls to the wall. Kind of treat it as like, do 2 to 3 sets of maybe a 70 to 80%. Now, starting out, you're not going to know what that is anyway, as far as your 70 to 80%.
Mhm.
So usually if you're just like shaking like crazy and all this other stuff, you're probably at 100%. So back that down a little bit. Shaking is a good thing. It's kind of like a neural adaptation because everything's trying to fire and figure out like what what muscle recruitment do I need the most out of? That's kind of like what your body is saying right now. So it's trying to fire all these little things like fireworks, if you will.
Mhm.
But really, you want to save the best for last. That big boom.
Mhm.
Um, so then like afterwards, then you can kind of be like, okay, I kind of understand like how much force I can apply now. So then next week, kind of like bump it up a little bit, almost like a periodization or a block periodization. Um, then you can either do that by keeping the percentage the same as far as like your 70 to 80% and adding an extra set, or you can add an extra set and then bump it up again to like a 90 to 100% and kind of see like how you feel and how your body's responding to that. It's all trial and error at the end of the day. So, um, if you ever get like a strength and conditioning coach or anybody else that is talking in absolutes, then like fire them immediately. Fire them
I like
because
that.
what works for me won't necessarily like work for you, and vice versa. But there's some things that I do that will work for you, and there's some things that you do that will work for me. So we kind of just need to feed off each other on that too.
I like that. In terms of
Yeah.
like maybe like a general rep scheme and like duration of like how long to hold with an
Yeah.
how
Yeah, I
many
didn't touch
reps
on
is
that, did
that?
I? Yeah, do like maybe like 2 to 3 sets. Let's call it 3 to 5 reps, and you're just going to push or hold, if you will, for 3 to 5 seconds, 3 to 6 seconds, somewhere in there.
Okay, I like that. That's actually so like in the clinic, what we've been having a lot of success with right now. We've had a few different patellar tendinopathies, jumper's knee,
Yeah.
total knee replacement. So I mean, just an actual Olympic weightlifter and a gentleman preparing for a marathon. And
Nice.
so there's a variety of different, I guess you could say, patient populations that we could apply these to. And
Mhm.
one of the best, and I'll probably put a video up for you guys to see this, but it's just very simple. So if you want to actually start playing around with this, I like your squat idea in terms of like if you, let's say you're having an anterior knee pain issue and you wanted to start trialing an isometric, what you could do is if you were to sit down and you were to take like a belt, it has to be something that's not going to allow so you can't use like stretchy bands. You can't use
Mhm.
those. You have to use a belt of some kind, and I'll record this and put this up so you guys can see this. But what you would do is you want to have it almost at like a 90-degree for your knee. And as you're driving out with your foot, like trying to extend your knee into that belt, there's going to be no movement of the knee joint whatsoever. You're going to kind of be locked out at 90.
Mhm.
So what I like what you're talking about in terms of like how hard you want them to push. You don't want them at like an RPE of 10 during this. I like to say so like sub-maximal or like if you're thinking like 0, I'm not pushing at all, and 10 is like absolutely as hard as I can push. I like people to kind of maybe migrate between like the 7 range in that
Mhm.
area. So like sub-maximal as much as you can. And I like the 30 to 45 seconds. I think it's a good time and duration to hold. You really feel the
Three to four,
tension in the
3 to 4
system.
seconds, 3 to 6, give or take. You said 30 to 40 seconds.
Oh yeah, no, I'm talking about pain control.
Oh yeah, okay.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, no. We'll talk about yours though next.
Sorry.
Yeah. No, you're good. And so we've been
I
doing
was
like
like,
30 to
oh, dude,
45
that's a
seconds.
terrible isometric right there.
Yeah, that's a long time to hold
Yeah.
that. But we've been doing 30 to 45 seconds. And
Mhm.
then we've been doing that for only maybe three repetitions, maybe six.
Yep.
And there's a huge reduction in pain immediately following. They're able to squat, they're able to jump. So it's like with that, now that's more for like pain modulation, neuromuscular control. With
Mhm.
what you're doing, let's go more into the rep sets and durations for what you're talking about.
Yeah, yeah. So I like to keep this short. You want to have like a max burst. So you essentially want to be like 0 to 100 as fast as you possibly can. Is kind of like my
Hmm.
theory on it. I think that like if you can play fast and you can play controlled, then you're gonna come off as faster. As far as like a smooth as fast kind of thing,
Hmm.
that's a big one that I say with like with the athletes. Like, don't try to be fast, just be smooth. If you can be smooth, then like 9 times out of 10, you're already going to be faster than what you were previously. Um, and then yeah, as far as like what you were saying too, those are more for um, like I'll do those with like Bulgarian split squats, those longer holds, like those 30,
Hmm.
45, even a minute. But
Yep.
then I'm getting ahead of myself, but I've really been messing with the quasi isometrics. So that's been awful, but it has been working too. It just sucks.
Yeah.
So just a quick breakdown of the quasi that I'll typically do is like if I'm doing a Bulgarian split squat, I'll hold about halfway down for 30 to 45 seconds, and then I'll start to lower myself eccentrically uh, for 30 to 45 seconds. And then let's say that I did it for 30 and 30, and then right after that, I would do 10 just explosive movements right off of that Bulgarian pop, 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 pop. So
Jeez, Pete.
yeah, it's a little rough.
Sounds horrible.
Yeah, but I
Oh.
almost think about it like I've had a few people ever since we did like that transformation thing. They're like, "Oh man, like I just don't have the time to work out and blah 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 blah." Dude, do like 3 reps of that. I bet you it'll take you a minute per rep, or yeah, a minute per rep. So you can't carve out 15 minutes in your day just to absolutely kill yourself. Then come on, you
Just
got
do
bigger
3 reps
problems
of
than just
that and
this.
you'll be
Yeah,
fine.
yeah.
Jesus. Ah, that's actually crazy to think about. Man.
Mhm. But like also too with like a lot of a lot of kids as far as like track athletes, let's call them like elite track athletes. Typically you don't want to add like unnecessary body mass too. So isometrics are going to help with that as well. It's going to keep your muscles down because there's a low hypertrophy, but then like there's a high neural adaptation. So that's what we want, is we want that adaptation without necessarily unnecessary body mass growth. So you want to stay light, you want to stay explosive, you want to stay deadly. So you don't want a bunch of just unnecessary fat or unnecessary muscle if you don't need it.
Oh, but you bring up a good point because I mean, I've had a few kids where they go through like either this crazy growth spurt or they come back from college and because they've been consistently basically eat, sleep, training, go to school,
Yeah.
and they come back and they're like 10, 15 pounds heavier than what they were. And they're like, I don't
Yep.
know why my knees or my ankles hurt, or like, I don't know why like my Achilles is flaring up. It's like, well, you just put on 10 to 15 pounds and you guys just started to
Yeah.
play, or you guys got into a whole bunch of plyometrics and like, your tendons and are loading at a significantly higher rate of force than what they're probably accustomed to. So it's like
Yep.
sometimes I think we miss and we don't incorporate the isometrics initially and then
Mhm.
try to get more into like the more advanced plyometrics because it's like we just increase their entire body mass. And now we're going to
Yep.
expect them to go be explosive, let alone being able to rebound or like counter jump with that new body mass.
Yep.
I feel like we miss sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah. You really, and I think, and I've been on the other end of this too. So I'm not going to say that I'm completely guilt free on this,
Mhm.
but you get so excited to have like certain athletes back that, like went off to college and now they're back and they're like, oh, dude, since you've been gone, we've been doing this, and this, and I think this can help and blah, blah, blah.
Mhm.
But you almost need to take a back seat and reacclimate them to the training and the stimulus that you yourself are giving them, because 9 times out of 10, it's probably different than what it was like at their school. So just use that first week or two as a reevaluation of them, because they could have certain coaches telling them, oh, hey, you need to move like this, or I'm looking for this angle and this change. And, that just doesn't get relayed to you, which is fine. But watching them and seeing how they're moving, and seeing their body language or their facial expressions when they are coming out of a plyometric, or how they're landing from a plyometric, then that's going to almost give you like a cheat sheet on, okay, hey, this, they gained a little weight, not in a bad way, they just gained a little weight when they're landing out of like a box jump or a depth jump or something like that. There's a little to them. Okay, well, why is that? Oh,
Mhm.
you gained 15 pounds, you've been playing nonstop, and now you're trying to readjust to this type of training. So you just need to back them down, build up that capacity again in their tendon, and then you can move on and have all your free time and play time that you want.
I like that. I like that. Now, you said that in typical fashion, you like when you do that reevaluation period and you're doing like the isometrics in the beginning, do you ever bring isometrics in as like maybe it's really good as part of a warm up for certain kids where like you have them just go do
Yeah,
a particular isometric and that's boom, money?
yeah, yeah, yeah. Typically, I like that. I even as a now I like that in terms of um, I will use an isometric for a warm up for kids that some of them are going to take offense to this, uh, that necessarily don't know how to push at 100% when the barbell starts to slow down,
Hmm.
or they are having trouble holding that top end speed because they aren't used to being at that top end speed for 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 12 seconds, what have you. So you need to be able to think while you're putting out that much force on, okay, I'm totally fine, everything is fine, I've been here before,
Hmm.
like I just need to focus on this, and getting your knee drive going and staying up tall, having that pelvic tilt, everything like that. So now the athletes that I know that they only know one speed and that's 100%, then I'm going to use an isometric later on in the training in order to essentially like uh, fatigue them at the end, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I like that because then it's minimal joint strain. You're still getting the same kind of muscular benefit in terms of
Yeah.
all adaptations. And then
Yeah, it's almost like just shortening the leash up on them again.
yeah.
Because some athletes, dude, they're just straight bulldogs, and they are just going to work until like they can't pick up their arms anymore. They're like waddling out of the gym. It is what it is. That's just some people's nature. Wrestlers, that's a prime example. I
Hmm.
have a few girls that are like that are basketball. They will just go like balls to the walls from the time that they wake up until the time they go to sleep. And it's just like, yo, hold on, let's pump these brakes a little bit. Let's bring you back down to earth. Because at the end of the day, we need you to not be hurt. We need you to be available to play. And that's the key.
That is huge. It's basically volume management right
Mm.
there. I love that. I wish more, I do wish more people would look into that more because I think, there's only so much in the cut that you can pull from, and you can make an isometric as hard as you need it to be, or you can basically spare other structures while still getting that same stimulus, which is awesome. I love
Yep.
that you're thinking about that already. Um,
Mhm.
I'm trying to think, is there anything else with isometrics that we need to cover?
Um, you want to wave them in and out. So when I
Mhm.
say wave, I mean like a 3, even a 4 week wave. So you only want to do them for 3 to 4 weeks, and then just take a deload, or take a wave off, like a 3 or 4 week wave off. Because
Mhm.
this is, especially if you're going 100%, you're going to max out like your CNS at that. So like
That's a good point.
because you're recruiting so much at the same time, because like your body hates to lose, it wants to win. So like when you're pushing against something with everything you got, it is like full go, that your body's like, I need to move this, or things are going to be bad for me. So then, like, it wears you out, and then and until you experience that, it does take a lot. So all of you that say that you go and do 10 push-ups and then you walk a mile and say that you're overtraining because you're sore, you're full of shit. So you just need to like know that. But I'm getting on a rant. Here we go again. Sorry, I'm gonna wheel it back in.
Welcome back, Trotter. Welcome
Yeah,
back.
yeah. Just get it going. So yeah, wave them in and out. So
Hmm.
and treat them like a max effort, full go kind of thing too.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, so you want to be able to recover from the stimulus that you're giving your body too, and that's the key in tracking all that. I had one more in there that you brought it up. So like tendon training. So again, you want to be able to train your tendons and your ligaments. It's not just all about these pretty muscles that you grow. So you got to be able to train the connective tissue that connects all those muscles and all those pretty muscles. How often do you see like, oh, so and so just blew their ACL, and now it seems that a big one is Achilles tears. I I don't
Yeah.
know about you. I've heard an Achilles tear before, and it's gross. I've heard an ACL tear, and it's gross. I've felt one, you know, uh, and it's like I promise you, you don't want to experience that. You don't want to go through it. You don't even want to hear it. Um, so,
Totally.
like with that being said, like take the time to do the dirty work of training your tendons and your ligaments. You can do that isometrically, or you can do that in like an ultra high rep range. If we're training our elbow tendons, for example, you're going to
Mhm.
do push downs, banded push downs, something like that. Let's go for like 100 to 200 reps, and that's going to seem like a lot. But if you read a book, you know that the blood supply doesn't get to the tendons as well as it does the muscles. So you got to push through that lactic acid phase and just get the job done.
Yeah, no, I like that. Good call to action, and maybe even a topic for another day. We could
Yeah.
talk more about the benefits of different tendon trainings besides isometrics. So
Yep.
people think tendon, the only thing they ever consider are eccentrics and isos, and there's
Mhm.
there's a whole lot more out there than what people are accustomed to. And
Yeah.
we'll definitely have to come into that another time. I think that'd be
Yeah.
good.
And again, it's just another tool to add to your toolbox. That's
Hmm.
that's all you're thinking about is just adding another tool. As long as it's a benefit and it has a specific duty on getting a job done, that's what you need. You
Yep.
know,
What's your goal?
you're
What's your reasoning?
for what?
I said, what's your reasoning? That's the
Yeah.
why. What's your why?
Yep.
I like it. I like it. No, Trotter, thank you again for coming on here with me again, buddy.
Yeah. It's been a while, but I blame the twins.
Papa Trotter.
Yeah. Yeah. Still getting used to it.
No, but hope everyone enjoyed today's episode. Hope you guys are looking forward to more information like this, and I'm going to put out the little booklet or little informational handout about tendon training. So if you guys want, go ahead and download that, and we will see you guys in the next episode.